For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a fateful morning in early 2023, 24-year-old Caleb Whitaker, an ecology student, left his solo hammock camp nestled deep within a flooded Igapo in the Vale do Javari, Amazonas. His scheduled check-in never arrived. River levels had spiked overnight, silencing any signal. Despite a massive and extensive investigation involving dedicated indigenous patrols and persistent river police, Caleb Whitaker vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the questions of the treacherous rainforest. For 2 agonizing years, his family lived with a relentless, unbearable uncertainty, clinging to hope that slowly withered into despair. Then, in late 2024, a truly unsettling discovery was made, a find that offered a glimpse into a terrifying truth. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Caleb Whitaker. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Caleb Whitaker, a 24-year-old American ecology student, harbored an intense, almost spiritual connection to the natural world. His particular fascination lay with the Amazon, a vast, untamed wilderness he saw not merely as a subject of study, but as a living entity, deserving of understanding and protection. Driven by an independent spirit and a thirst for first-hand knowledge, Caleb had ventured deep into the Vale do Javari, a remote and largely inaccessible region of Amazonas, Brazil. This area, a mosaic of dense jungle and serpentine waterways, presented both breathtaking beauty and formidable dangers. His chosen research site was a flooded Igapo, a seasonal forest submerged by blackwater rivers, located perilously close to a known channel frequently used by local hunters. Caleb's methodology was as self-reliant as his disposition. His camp was a simple hammock strung between trees, a minimalist setup that allowed for mobility and a deep immersion in the environment. From this isolated perch, he maintained a strict routine, including scheduled satellite phone check-ins, a crucial lifeline in such an unforgiving landscape. These calls served as his only contact with the outside world, a signal of his continued safety. The Amazon, however, is a realm of unpredictable power. One night, without warning, the river levels in the Igapo spiked dramatically, a sudden surge transforming the already complex landscape into an even more treacherous labyrinth of submerged trees and swirling currents. The rising waters could easily disorient, trap, or even sweep away an unprepared individual. The next morning, Caleb Whitaker's scheduled check-in never came. The silence on the other end of the line was not merely an absence of sound. It was a profound void, a stark departure from his meticulous habits. Initial attempts to re-establish contact, a series of increasingly frantic calls to his satellite device, yielded nothing but the persistent drone of an unanswered signal or the dead silence of no connection at all. As hours turned into a full day, a creeping unease solidified into a chilling certainty. Something was terribly wrong. The alarm was raised, signaling the commencement of what would become an immediate yet daunting search operation. The sheer scale of the Amazonian wilderness, coupled with the river's recent furious transformation of the landscape, presented an almost insurmountable obstacle from the outset, casting a long shadow over the prospects of finding the young student. The alarm for Caleb Whitaker's disappearance immediately triggered an urgent, if logistically nightmarish, response. The sheer scale of the Vale do Javari, its labyrinthine waterways and impenetrable jungle, presented an almost insurmountable challenge for any search operation. Every kilometer covered required immense resources and an intimate understanding of an environment that could swallow a person whole without leaving a trace. Leading the official efforts was Lieutenant Paulo Mendes, a seasoned river cop whose years navigating the Amazonas had hardened him to its unpredictable nature and the often grim realities it concealed. His teams, comprising federal agents and local military police, began a painstaking grid search of the Igapo, battling the swiftly moving currents and the dense, submerged vegetation. Complementing these official units was an indigenous patrol led by Nara Silva, a formidable woman whose ancestral knowledge of the land was invaluable. Her team moved with a silent efficiency born of generations spent in the forest, their eyes trained to spot the minutest disturbance, a broken twig or an unnatural displacement in the undergrowth that might indicate passage. Despite their combined expertise and tireless efforts, the Amazon proved an unyielding adversary. The recent spike in river levels had dramatically reshaped the landscape, washing away potential tracks and scattering any debris that might have offered a clue. Days bled into weeks, characterized by the constant drone of outboard motors, the rhythmic dip of paddles, and the strained calls echoing through the humid air. They searched the flooded forest, scoured riverbanks for signs of his hammock or gear, and interviewed local communities, yet nothing emerged. There was no trace of Caleb Whitaker's camp, no discarded equipment, no sign of struggle, and no indication of an accident. It was as if the environment itself had simply absorbed him, leaving behind an unsettling void. With each passing day, the initial urgency gave way to a creeping frustration, a desperate realization that the vastness of the mystery was eclipsing the rapidly dwindling chances of finding the young student alive. The jungle held its secrets tightly. The search for Caleb Whitaker, despite the tireless efforts of Lieutenant Paulo Mendes, Nara Silva, and their respective teams, eventually yielded no further results. As weeks stretched into months and the relentless Amazonian environment continued to offer no definitive clues, the immense logistical and financial strain of a full-scale operation became unsustainable. The decision, though agonizing for all involved, was inevitable. The intensive search efforts had to be scaled back. Patrols still occasionally swept through the known areas, and local communities were reminded to report anything unusual, but the dedicated, coordinated hunt for the American student ceased. Caleb Whitaker's file transitioned from an active missing persons case to a cold one. He was officially listed as lost in the unforgiving expanse of the Amazon, his disappearance an unsolved mystery, a stark testament to the jungle's capacity to conceal its secrets. 2 years slowly eroded the initial urgency and the flickering hope. The dense canopy reclaimed any potential pathways, the fluctuating river levels erased any faint traces, and the sheer passage of time dulled the sharp edges of the initial shock. For those who had dedicated themselves to finding him, the silence was deafening. The vastness of the Vale du Javari seemed to swallow not only Caleb, but also any explanation for his vanishing. Unanswered questions hung heavy in the humid air, a constant reminder of the inherent vulnerabilities of those who dared to venture into such wild, contested territories, where the line between natural peril and human threat often blurred beyond recognition. The Amazon had closed in, and Caleb Whitaker was gone. 2 years had passed since Caleb Whitaker's disappearance, a period during which the Vale du Javari's dense canopy and shifting waterways had effectively erased any immediate trace of the young ecology student. His file, once a subject of intense scrutiny, had long since grown cold, a grim testament to the Amazon's unforgiving nature and its capacity to swallow secrets whole. The hope of finding him, once a fervent flame, had dwindled to a faint ember, kept alive only by the most dedicated. Then, during a routine patrol deep within the same Igapo region where Caleb had vanished, an unexpected discovery shifted the entire paradigm. An indigenous patrol, navigating a recently receded channel, stumbled upon an anomaly beneath a cluster of overgrown roots, partially exposed by the lowered water levels. It was a meticulously crafted palm frond wrap, its fibers still surprisingly intact after 2 years in the humid environment. Inside, nestled amongst dried leaves and carefully concealed from casual view, lay several small bundles of feathers. They were not scattered haphazardly, but purposefully bound together with a thick, dark cord, a cord that bore a distinct, waxy sheen. This was no ordinary debris, no remnant of a lost camp. The deliberate construction of the wrap, the unusual composition of the bundles, and particularly the beeswax-smeared cord, immediately suggested a deeper, more intentional significance. These were unmistakably ritual objects, their presence in such a remote location hinting at practices far removed from the everyday. The discovery instantly transformed the narrative surrounding Caleb's disappearance from a tragic accident or environmental mishap into something potentially more deliberate, even sinister. The perplexing nature of the find necessitated specialized analysis. Forensic technician Arturo Benassi, renowned for his meticulous work with organic materials, and his ability to extract information from the most unlikely sources was called upon. His expertise would be crucial in deciphering the silent language of these enigmatic items. The long-dormant file of Caleb Whitaker, once considered a tragic cold case, was now dramatically reopened, infused with a chilling new direction and the faint yet undeniable flicker of a renewed investigation. Forensic technician Arturo Benassi approached the newly discovered items with the methodical precision that defined his career. In the sterile environment of his lab, a stark contrast to the humid jungle from which they came, the palm frond wrap, the feather bundles, and particularly the beeswax-smeared cord were laid out under high magnification. Benassi's initial task was painstaking, to preserve any latent evidence while meticulously documenting the physical characteristics of each component. He examined the weave of the fronds, the species of feathers, and the composition of the dark cord, noting the distinct, almost organic scent of beeswax. Specialized tools were employed to gently collect microscopic fibers, environmental particulates, and any organic residues adhering to the twine. The primary objective was the extraction of DNA, a challenging endeavor on materials exposed to 2 years of Amazonian elements. But the beeswax offered a potential protective layer, a faint hope. The discovery immediately galvanized Lieutenant Paulo Mendes and Nara Silva. The long silence surrounding Caleb Whitaker's disappearance had been shattered, replaced by a tangible, if enigmatic, clue. For Mendes, the shift was profound. The case was no longer a lamentable incident of a lost person, but a potential crime, demanding a renewed, aggressive investigation. Nara Silva, too, felt a familiar tension. The ritualistic nature of the objects resonated with deeper, often darker currents of human activity within the forest. Their collaboration, once focused on a search for a missing individual, now converged on understanding a complex act. Hypotheses within the investigative team began to shift dramatically. The previous assumptions of accidental drowning or misadventure in the wilderness were largely discarded. The presence of carefully crafted ritual objects pointed unequivocally to human involvement, opening avenues of inquiry into potential foul play, territorial conflicts with illegal fishers or loggers, or even an encounter with isolated communities whose practices remained largely unknown to outsiders. The specific meaning of the feathers and the waxed cord became central to their new line of questioning. The challenge now lay in bridging the 2-year gap and the vast geographical distance between Caleb Whitaker and these perplexing artifacts. What was their origin? Were they a warning, a message, or a direct consequence of an encounter? The investigators wrestled with the profound implications of connecting these seemingly ancient, culturally significant items to the fate of a modern ecology student, understanding that within these small bundled feathers and waxed twine lay the potential key to unlocking the Vale de Javari's long-held secret. The exhaustive analysis conducted by forensic technician Arturo Benassi reached its pivotal moment. Weeks of meticulous work in the lab, a stark contrast to the humid, untamed environment from which the samples originated, culminated in a definitive finding. The microscopic cells, painstakingly extracted from the beeswax-smeared twine, yielded a full genetic profile. The result was unequivocal. The touch DNA matched Caleb Whitaker. This confirmation definitively placed the missing ecology student in direct contact with the ritual objects, transforming them from perplexing artifacts into a chilling, personal link to his fate. The case, long cold, now had a tangible, biological anchor. Concurrently, Lieutenant Paulo Mendes had pursued a parallel, seemingly unrelated line of inquiry. His teams had intensified operations against illegal fishing encampments operating deep within the Vale do Javari. These raids, driven by intelligence on persistent environmental crimes, specifically targeted the very cove where Caleb Whitaker had last been known to establish his hammock camp. Among the vast array of equipment seized from these illicit operations were several two-way radios, often used by the fishers for communication across the sprawling waterways. The technical analysis of these seized radios, initially intended to glean intelligence about the illegal networks, unexpectedly revealed stored audio files. One particular recording, time-stamped from the night Caleb Whitaker vanished, contained an unsettling and distinct sequence. Amidst the usual static and ambient jungle sounds, the rhythmic beat of drums could be clearly discerned, emanating from the precise coordinates of the cove where the radios were found and where Caleb had disappeared. It was a sound deeply embedded in the cultural landscape of the Amazon, but its presence in this context, on that specific night, was profoundly disturbing. The convergence of these two independent breakthroughs was dramatic and conclusive. Caleb Whitaker's DNA on the ritual objects, discovered in the vicinity of his last known location, now intertwined with audio evidence of distinct night drumming recorded by illegal fishers in that exact same remote cove on the very night he disappeared. This was no longer a theory of accident or simple disappearance. It painted a stark picture of an encounter, a conflict, and a deliberate act. The ritual objects, once enigmatic, now suggested a grim narrative of confrontation, perhaps even a desperate attempt to ward off or appease forces perceived as alien or threatening. The jungle had finally begun to yield its secrets, revealing a terrifying intersection of illegal exploitation and local custom that had tragically sealed Caleb Whitaker's fate. The exhaustive analysis and the parallel investigation converged to paint a chilling, definitive picture of Caleb Whitaker's disappearance. The touch DNA, unequivocally matching Caleb, found on the beeswax-smeared twine of the ritual objects, definitively linked him to these enigmatic artifacts. Simultaneously, the audio recordings of rhythmic night drumming, emanating from the precise cove where Caleb had last camped and seized from the illegal fishers operating in that very zone, provided the crucial temporal and geographical context. Caleb Whitaker's fate was no longer a mystery swallowed by the jungle. It was now understood as a tragic consequence of an encounter with illegal activities and, potentially, the ritualistic practices associated with those operating outside the law in the Amazon's most remote reaches. The evidence suggested a confrontation, a desperate act, and a deliberate silencing. While the specific perpetrators of Caleb's demise remained subject to ongoing legal processes, the confluence of his DNA on the objects and the night drumming recorded by the illegal fishers in the same location implicated a direct connection between the illicit exploitation of the Vale du Javari and the young student's death. It was a stark illustration of the dangers inherent in these contested territories. The resolution, though grim, was a testament to the unwavering perseverance of Lieutenant Paulo Mendes, Nara Silva, and forensic technician Arturo Benassi. Their painstaking work, Mendes's relentless pursuit of illegal networks, Silva's invaluable indigenous insight, and Benassi's meticulous scientific dedication, had, against immense odds, finally pieced together the truth. Their efforts underscored the critical importance of collaboration and tenacity in the face of such overwhelming challenges. Caleb Whitaker's story became a poignant, harrowing reflection of the broader struggle for the Amazon. His tragic end highlighted the persistent threats faced by those who venture into these fragile ecosystems, whether for study, protection, or simple human presence. The relentless tide of illegal logging, fishing, and mining continues to erode not only the natural world, but also the safety of anyone who stands in its path. Caleb, the ecology student driven by a pure passion for understanding and preserving the Amazon, ultimately became a casualty of its darkest conflicts. His memory now serves as a stark reminder of the human cost exacted by environmental exploitation, a silent echo in the vast, contested wilderness of the Vale do Javari.